So, welcome to Tea Time with Melanie. This is just a chatty stream where we talk about what's been going on in the campaign. Usually we'll have these with just the cast of the stream, but today is a very, very special episode because we have our beautiful DM Kara with us. And so, hello everybody, good evening. I am Melanie and I play Seraphina in the Dion Rising campaign for the Knights of D20, and I will let Kara introduce herself.
Hi, as she said, I'm the DM for all things Knights of D20, and in particular right now, the Dion Rising campaign. Thank you for having me as the first tea time guest.
Yes,
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. Yeah, so let's start off. First and foremost, what are you drinking today?
I am drinking one of my favorites, lemon and ginger.
Lemon and ginger? Okay. Yes, I remember this. You told me about this.
Yeah, it's one of my teas that is, it's an herbal tea, so it doesn't have caffeine to keep me up all night.
Yeah,
that's the important bit.
Yeah, you told me you were sensitive to caffeine, right?
I am, yeah. Like a cup of coffee in the morning wakes me up, but a cup of coffee afternoon keeps me up. So.
Okay, yeah. I am having something known as white ambrosia, so it's this very floral tea. It's very, very good.
Delicious. Yes.
So cheers!
That sounds lovely. Cheers. Happy tea time. Oh, my coaster is always sticking to the bottom of my cup.
Alrighty. So let's start off with some of the projects that you've been working on, because I know Bobby, during our last session, he went through just like 5 minutes about everything that we've been doing. So I would love to chat through just all of the projects we've been working on as a team.
Yeah, there's truly so many. Bobby covered most of them, but I'll get a little bit further into some of them.
Yeah.
So, but for our viewers' sake, this all started as us all wanting to stream a D&D campaign, and it's snowballed as we all bring our other special interests and little niche things we could do into the fold. So tea time being one of those things, but as well as that, last week I recorded the first episode of the Intelligence Modification Podcast, or IntMod Pod, with Bobby. That's kind of his brainchild that he's been working up this whole time. So our session 1 of IntMod Pod really went into a lot about the different skill blocks on a character sheet. So if you want to know more about all the skills in D&D, hop on and listen to that. We also talked a lot about what makes a good D&D player and what makes a really bad D&D player. Who does a DM not want at their table? We kind of got off topic in that way, but also kind of useful. So if you are someone who is new to D&D and watches a lot of D&D streams, but wants to understand more about what's going on when we're all rolling dice and adding numbers, Bobby's your person. He's such a good teacher. And I learned a lot from him, even just recording that one episode. So all DMs are learning from other DMs all the time. It's really wonderful. So we've been doing that. Aside from that, we are going to start a fantasy romance book club. A whole nother project we've been doing, not even a project, but something we are doing for fun because we all love each other so much and like spending time together on the internets. We've all been playing Baldur's Gate 3. Not all of us, but myself, Bobby, and Royal. And in playing that, Bobby confessed he's never read a fantasy romance book. And I found that personally offensive. So I assigned him some homework, some reading to do, and he decided we should turn that into a Knights of D20 book club. So I believe we're going with the title of Very Specific Fantasies.
Yes.
Which is a callback to
self-reference.
Yes. Very self-referential. Yeah, we like the inside jokes a lot at D20, so.
Yeah, we're just trying to turn everything into a meme.
Yes, we are memifying ourselves. That's how it works, right? We can just go viral because we said so, because we think we're funny. That has to work. Yeah, we have a few other random little projects that we have in mind. A big one that I've been involved in is getting all of our social media off the ground, TikTok, Instagram, all these different things, to kind of expand our reach and show people what we're doing here and why they should watch all of our silly little faces play a silly little game all the time. Because that's what it comes down to. Dion Rising is it's a child. It's a child that came from my body, and I love it. So that's my big focus.
Yeah, I feel like all of our projects, it feels like a tree where the Dion Rising is like the trunk, and then we have all these little branches of offshoots of different things that we're trying to explore and just have fun together with. Because I think as we've come together, I think we just have become really good friends, and it's really nice to engage with each other in all these different avenues. And I think it's a really good way to share the fun that we have with each other, with all of our stream watchers. And so I think I would love to be everybody to kind of share with us in that energy that we're bringing, because I feel like everything we're doing is such a Libra of, oh, Bobby has a heart in chat.
Love you, Bobby. Yeah, Bobby's the one who brought us all together, and truly, I think it is a testament to not just Dungeons and Dragons, but tabletop role-playing games. That, like, once you start that with the right group of people, it's hard not to become friends and to bond over things that are make-believe, imaginary. So, yeah, you're right. We all just love sharing the same, I don't know, random thoughts with each other all day, and that just keeps turning into new projects that we're making together, which is very fun.
Yeah, I feel like we're constantly connected on our Discord.
Very much, yes. Like every day I'm like, yeah. Sometimes it's about like normal things related to our projects. Most of the time it's like memes and jokes and being absolute chaotic little people. Yeah. We're just a bunch of Zadas in real life, I think.
I know. Oh my gosh, I was thinking that too. That's so funny.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So, since we have you here today for our first episode of our tea time, I think something I want to chat through is just a little bit about your campaign writing process and how you created our world and sort of put together the story that we're walking through.
Yeah. So I've been a DM for a very short amount of time, and I've played D&D not much longer than I was DMing. So the first time I decided to DM, I just kind of had a story to tell, and I put together friends to play through it.
Yeah.
So even from the beginning, my method for writing a campaign has kind of started with what we call in D&D like the big bad evil guy, the BBEG, which doesn't have to be a guy, doesn't have to be just one person, but is your kind of party's antagonist.
Yeah.
The main through line. I've seen a lot of D&D campaigns that just have all these little storylines that lead into one big final confrontation. So yeah, I kind of start with the end of the campaign, if you will. I have an idea of a world, and then I have an idea of what kind of person could this world have really messed up? What kind of person would be evil in a world like this? So I started with Dion, and me being me, I had to make Dion like a little bit of an evil capitalism hellscape, a little bit. And it's not hard to imagine what kind of evil people come from that. So, or what kind of people can't fit into that world easily and would end up an antagonist in someone else's story. Because I love gray areas. That's one thing about me is I love shades of gray. Nothing's, what's evil for one person is not for someone else. So yeah, I usually start at the end and work my way backwards via my big bad evil guy. And I figure out what their story is and where they're moving and how they're trying to reach their goals. And then from there, once I kind of know who my players are and what my characters are that are going to be playing with this person, how would that person's plans affect them in their lives? So that's how I get the smaller story beats. I can leave you guys in a sandbox of a world, but if this big bad evil guy is left unchecked, it will start affecting people, maybe in small ways that snowball into bigger ways. So I find that to be a really, frankly, an easy way for me to make sure that I'm not over planning what you all would do. I know where the big bad evil guy is. That's all I need to know. And I kind of have to plan, how would that affect you in this region or in this particular storyline? And then once you all get into the game, the story kind of writes itself. As long as I know what the big bad evil guy is doing and where, then I can focus on where you all are and how to make your story be affected by the overarching thematic problems. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. The way you described it, I almost imagine maybe a pebble being thrown into a still lake where in the center is the big bad evil guy, and then there's little ripples, and I kind of imagine us just starting out at the edges and nibbling and then working our way inward. Is that kind of how you're envisioning it?
That's exactly correct. Yes. Because it is like, I know when the pebble hits, I know how it hits, and I don't have to think that far about how the ripples will reach all the way to the outside. Just, I think small. I think, where are you all on that outside ripple? And how do I make sure that that pebble being thrown from there is leaving a little trail of breadcrumbs toward the middle for you? So yeah, that's very an astute way to put it. Not a way I would have pictured it before, but makes a lot of sense.
So is it important for you to have that through line throughout the story, that it connects with the big bad evil guy, so that the things that we're experiencing these are all ramifications of what the big bad evil guy is doing?
Yeah, kind of. I like to throw in, not everything is connected to the whole story. Some things are kind of random, but
Yeah.
what I'm doing, in my other campaigns, that's all well and good. We have lots of time. We have years to finish a campaign if we want to, if we can keep the scheduling monsters from overwhelming us and breaking up a campaign. But in what we're doing with Dion Rising, we're telling a story for an audience as well as playing this game and writing the story with each other. So it's been a little bit more of a difficult balance, making sure that I'm allowing the world to feel like it can be affected by you all, and making sure that you all have a really good effect on a powerful effect on the outcome, while also making sure that the story keeps moving forward and things aren't just random for 5 episodes, and that things kind of link together, and at least there's clues or breadcrumbs along the way. So getting my pacing down has been a challenge when I think about the way I've planned my other campaigns and the way I'm planning and writing Dion Rising.
So when you say you're pacing, is that something you're trying to move it upwards, right? Because your other campaigns, you felt like you could go at a very leisurely pace, but this one you kind of feel, okay, we should kind of stay on track in a way.
Yeah, it's been a different test of like my own, like, I don't know, leadership ability, or like my suggestion of like, here's maybe some more like very specific clues that are very obviously clues. In my other groups, I don't have to sweat it if they miss the clue that I planted in an episode. I want to make sure that you all in our audience are feeling like we're moving forward in a satisfying way almost every episode. So yeah, it's definitely been a test of my own ability to lead you all without leading you all. It's like that Office meme. Like, I want to be led, but I only when I feel like being led. So I want you all and the audience to feel like I'm leading you, but I don't want you to feel like you're being railroaded, which is another thing D&D people say. I don't want to force you into making decisions your characters wouldn't make. I don't want to try and over predict what your characters would do, because that also takes the spontaneity and the fun of playing another character straight out of it. If I'm just saying, here's your character's role in the story, follow it. That's not D&D. That's writing a script and telling it with friends.
Yeah, I think part of D&D is at least the illusion of free will, and also just having some kind of stakes in things. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. And then another thing you mentioned, or you touched on a little bit, was just the setting of Dion Rising. Because you did mention you start with the big bad evil guy, but just from our conversations and what I've gotten to know about you, is that the world in which Dion Rising takes place actually existed before the campaign had actually started. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true. Dion Rising was Dion, the world of Dion, is something that I had created with random future campaign in mind. I didn't have any like group to play with it yet. I was maybe a quarter of the way through actually writing different lore and background about the world when I was first introduced and met Bobby, and heard that they were looking for a DM who had a homebrewed world, who was willing to do the streaming thing. And I said, I have a world in the process of being planned that I was then very excited to just throw some really great D&D players into. So even before this group was fully formed, the world of Dion existed, and its 2 sister planets existed, and the gods of this planet existed. And so yeah, that all was my first foray into homebrewing a world. I've run out of several other systems, including Matt Mercer's Wildmount. I have a campaign in there that I love. So it was my first time world building, and being able to join this group gave me really good incentive to finish it and get it ready for a party.
So you touched on a lot just very briefly, just as you were talking. And it makes me feel like the world that you have developed is very, very large. Can you just give us a little bit of insight as to the part of the setting that we will be seeing and part of the setting that we might never see in this campaign?
Yes. Okay. So Dion is one of three whole planets. They were all created by the goddess Dion, and so they're called her three heart planets because she, as a goddess, made them of her three hearts. So they're kind of literally a part of her. And she and her pantheon of gods that she brought with her populated the planets, and Dion, being the one named after her, is kind of her favorite, her baby, which means a lot of things happen there. And a lot of things in history have happened with this pantheon of gods, specifically affecting the world Dion. I wanted to write a world that had a lot of like ancient lore and secrets to be found, and it's Dungeons and Dragons. I wanted to throw in a lot of ancient dungeons that have a lot of unanswered questions in them. So I wrote a history of the pantheon, a history of the gods that would allow some mystery to the past. I didn't want everything to be able to be found in a book in the library. I want some exploration to have to happen. So I wrote the world with that in mind, and I wrote the story of the gods with that in mind. On Dion herself, she has like kind of three regional continents. She's got the eastern continent, the middle continents, and the western continents. So it is a physically large world. It's hard to travel to all of it, but with you all having such different party members, you're covering all three of those continents, really, with all of your different backgrounds and your backstories. So it's very exciting to know that we may never get to see all three continents. Right now, you're starting kind of in the center of the world in Tuzankin on the middle continent. But it's a big, wide world out there, and there's a whole lot of stuff buried in the unfathomable and unreachable places. So there's a lot of secrets buried out there for you all to try and find.
So, okay, so we're on Dion. Do the people on Dion know of the other planets? Can they see the other planets?
They can see them from where they are, so they know that they are one of the three heart planets. The gods and goddesses are still a part of, their everyday religion. But like all gods, they're very mysterious. They don't like to share too much, or at least when they do share, it's pretty cryptic and ununderstandable. But yeah, the people of Dion know of the other two heart planets. I believe that some of the people know that those are populated planets with their own cultures. I don't think that's common knowledge, though. I think that I'm as the D&D freak, I'm a big fan of things like Planescape and Spelljammer, which are two different systems wherein you can travel between like realities. You can travel between the realms of space or from universe to universe, or you can fly through the astral sea and you can encounter all these different worlds. So that's something that maybe is a possibility on our planet. Very rarely, but I think perhaps there's even people out there who have been to the other two heart planets. But I like to think like when we were in medieval times or the Dark Ages, we could see the moon. We could imagine what was out there. We had some like folklore or some religion related to the celestial bodies. But for the lay folk, it's a mystery. So that's also something fun that I want to play with, and leaves me open to future campaigns in this trio of planets that maybe don't affect each other at all, or maybe have little crossovers. I like that kind of stuff. So that was all part of the planning.
Yeah, so, okay, if you're on Dion and you say you've been to another planet or that you know of life on the other planets, are they seen as, like, crazy conspiracy theorist people? Do people believe them, or do they think they're weirdos?
I think that for a lot of people, it depends on if they are, like, very strictly researching the like Dionic religion. If there's someone who follows Dion who has like looked into the before times texts and information and done some digging, then they would understand that like the heart worlds are all made of Dion, and they would surmise that all three worlds were populated. However, I think that unless you're a scholar of the religious arts, you might be inclined to think that they were crazy. So it kind of depends on their level of how much they assign to things that have been found in the past.
All right. Yeah, that's really exciting. And Yeah, I think I look forward to not only this campaign but possibly other campaigns on the other worlds, and yeah, that'd be really fun.
Yeah, I want to like my dream is to like pass off one of the worlds to another DM and say like, "Hey, I made this universe and the worlds don't have to have anything to do with each other. Like this could be a world that's set in like 1950s style industrial revolution whatever. Like it doesn't have to be anything like the other two. Go nuts, see what you can do with it. Here's a pantheon of gods that exist there, whether the people on that world really worship them or not." Those worlds are very much still in the early stages of development in my head, which leaves a world of possibility.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think there are multiple worlds of opportunity available in this kind of setup, so I think that makes it very exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to explore Dion.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about just the character development process? Because you mentioned you start with the big bad evil guy. You had your setting before, even before that. How was the character development process, and how did it play into like the structure that you set up for the campaign that we're in?
Yeah, my world was pretty well built out by the time we had all of the Knights of D20 assembled, and we were all beginning our character creation. You all came with really solid character bases in mind, if not a fully formed character that we just kind of then detail worked. So when it came time, I had individual conversations with all of you, lots of them, in figuring out, hey, here's a character that I want to play. Here's kind of their personality and what I think their backstory probably looked like. And then it was up to me to say, well, here's the different regions where that backstory would make sense, or here's the different things that your family could have done or been involved with that would be an interesting piece of your story. So from there, I was just really kind of guiding you all into like geographic locations, and a lot of like I did a lot of like teaching you all about the politics of your different cities that you were raised in, or we would work together. Like a lot of that, I had like a simple city description in mind, or like a country description in mind. And then once someone said, I think I want my person to be from there, then I really went in and, and filled it with NPCs that they've interacted with, or filled it with a political structure. So yeah, a lot of the detail writing that went into your character backstories and then also your character builds were created with your specific characters in mind rather than the other way around. I had a very big picture. I had a very big map and simple synopsis ideas that I then get into the details and the weeds of as needed, because I'm not someone who has 80 pages of lore that I'm not going to use. I'm going to make sure that if I have lore that I've spent time on, it's probably going to come into play at some point.
Okay, I see.
No better way to do it with characters.
Oh, we have a comment in chat. Are we talking about PCs or NPCs? We are talking about PCs right now, but what I'm hearing from our DM Kara is that some of the NPCs created for the setting were specifically for the player characters, right? And to like support their backstory. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Like I think it was after episode 2 or 3 that I messaged you with like a list of like friends from school or something. Like
yeah.
It is very much in development as we play.
Yeah, I kind of imagine it like, just from the way you're describing it, I imagine it as the setting of Dion is a rough sketch, and as we play through, as we like develop our characters, all of the details start to flourish and flood in, and they come more to life. And so I think that's really interesting to be able to walk through and change and influence the setting in that way.
Yeah. Like in episode 1, you guys fought 2 random flail snails. They were what you were supposed to do. They escaped. They were dangerous. You were supposed to kill them. End of story. And then in episode 2, they had to have names just because I think Bobby asked. I think Bobby just asked, like, what were their names? And suddenly they had names. And then suddenly further, you all had a different, like, visceral reaction, or your characters had no reaction, depending on their, like, alignment or how they feel about what they've done or how they feel about killing animals and monsters and things. So just giving them giving you guys the chance to influence the world like that, even though it doesn't look like you're the ones influencing it. I could have had that written all along. No one would ever know, right? But really, that's, you all helped me write the story. That's the point of D&D, is that we're collaboratively storytelling. So if you all set me up to swing the bat, I'm gonna swing it as hard as I can. But I can't swing the bat if you don't throw me a couple pitches. So sometimes you gotta ask for the names of the animals you kill, and then they'll have names.
Yeah, that was the most devastating thing that happened to us, because it was fine until they were named Go-Go and Petunia, and we broke our hearts.
R.I.P. Go-Go and Petunia. They will live in our hearts forever now, even though they were just episode 1. We needed a battle.
Yeah, exactly. Just to bring us all together.
That's what I love about D&D. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are a big influence on the stuff I write. I have a world that you can play in, but I don't want to back myself into a corner. I don't want to have to reference notes every 30 seconds when you ask for the random barkeeper's name, Barnacle. So it's a lot of it comes, it's goose after the egg or egg after the goose, who knows.
Yeah, I think one of your strengths has definitely been your improv, and you just come up with these wonderful puns and names and characters, and it feels like a very rich environment. So I think that's one of the really wonderful things to be able to play with you. So I think everybody loves that and cherishes that about you.
Yeah, I tell Bobby all the time, I'm like, you should be DMing. He's the one with the actual background. I think Robin, who plays Bula, has been playing for, what'd you say, over 15 or 20 years or something crazy. And I started 5 years ago playing D&D, not even. So I'm definitely not a DM who knows all the rules. I'm a DM who's taken improv classes and has lived my life with little imaginary friends and make-believe stories in my head that D&D just has brought out of me in a really fun way.
Yeah, I think that's the heart of D&D too, is just bringing life into the characters and the story. And I think the rules are there, but that's just more of a framework in which we can explore things and the rules to navigate different situations. But I think the spirit of it is really just about the storytelling. So I think that's what you're bringing, and I think everybody really feels that.
Thank you. That's all I can hope for. All I can hope for is to have friends enjoy playing pretend with me on the playground. This is for me.
So I know that you have a general idea of the structure of how things are going to develop. How do you balance out providing a structure so that like we said, there's ripples and you want us to move inward? How do you structure moving us inward and having that freedom, like I said, the illusion of free will? How do you balance between those two?
Yeah, this is something that I've heard a lot of other DMs before I ever started DMing. I researched a lot about how to do that well, because I knew going in as a DM, people don't want to be railroaded. Some people do, and if they just want to be rolling dice and crunching animals, cool, we can do that. But I've only ever played with people who want to feel like they have free will in the game. But then how do you have an overarching story if you're not just sandboxing the whole campaign? So what I learned and what I practice is making sure that if I have a specific thing you have to find or a specific person you have to meet, anything that's going to drive the story forward, I have to be super flexible about where you find them or what they are, or what they look like, what that thing is. I can come up with one very specific clue that you're supposed to get that leads you along, and it has to be able to be found in a tavern, in the blacksmith shop, in a dungeon that you've been stuck in for 4 episodes. I just have to be able to pick this thing up and be very flexible about where it is and why it was there. I just want it to make a little bit of sense that it would be where it is, but I have to be able to put it where you're going. That way it was your choice and you feel like you really found the Easter egg, the hidden thing. So I think that's the thing that all DMs need to hear if they don't know how to do that. Just have the thing that they need to find and move it to where they are as much as you possibly can. Or find a really compelling way to get them to where it is. If it's something like you need them to go to a specific city, you have to compel them to do so without giving away your whole story. Put 3 of their backstory characters in the same place if you have to, and make sure that 3 of your characters are motivated to go where you want them to go. So that's a big piece of advice that I've followed and I think has worked thus far. We'll see if it continues as we get further into this big world, if I can keep improving that quickly on my feet.
No, you've been doing a great job so far, and I think with time it can only get better, so.
Yeah, and we all, people may not probably know this if they've started watching, we've only known each other for like 6 months, maybe, not even.
Yeah,
we just
not
started this at the
even,
beginning of
yeah.
summer. Like, I think I met Bobby in late spring, and the rest has snowballed from there. So we all also don't know each other. I've only ever run games for friends or friends of friends, people who I know well, people who know me well, who I can just, like, they can read me. They can read when something's important. But with you all, I've had to learn how to, like, what clues you'll pick up on. How obvious do I have to be? How do I know when you're playing in character if you get the thing that I just dropped, or if I have to be even more specific, or if I have to pull back a little bit and let you guys do a little bit of, like, intelligent exploring. So that's also been a new kind of challenge for, I think, all of us. You all have to learn how to read me, and I've learned how to read you. I think we've all gotten pretty good at it. I'd say we're, like, getting there. We all understand each other pretty clearly, and we all, like, debrief pretty frequently. So that's something I do in my home games, too. You know, like, okay, what can I do better as a DM? And you guys ask all the time, what can I do better in improv? What can I do better? Or how can I, like, min-max my character a little bit better to make them more effective in combat? These are all conversations that can and should happen above the table, regardless of whether you're doing a home campaign or something like what we're doing, a show.
Yeah, exactly. I think, so one of the things that you've mentioned in our conversations is trying to figure out storylines, not only the overarching storyline with the big bad evil guy, but also storylines for each of the characters. How can you tell me more about how you developed that?
Yeah, I'm going to tell it like a secret, I guess. Maybe it doesn't have to be a secret. But the character storylines are, like, the thing I'm actually the most, like, that's my love language, is writing character stories, and, like, specifically a character arc. I think everybody comes to D&D with a story or something with that their inner child wants to play out, you know, like whether they want to be a hero who defeats the dragon and saves their hometown, or if they want to be a rogue who is sneaky and cool, or they want to be a bard who gets all the girls. Like, either way, someone's coming with a story they want to tell and to live out and pretend to be in. So I like to figure out what exactly is that. So I had conversations with each of you while we developed our characters, while you developed your characters, and asked, like, okay, what do you want for your character? You know, like, I'm not going to just let you write their whole story, because I want it to be a surprise and to be fun and interactive, but I want to know how to make this fun for you, and how to make not just your character motivated to be a part of this group, but how to motivate you as a player to keep coming back and playing pretend every single week with a group of people. So figuring out what kind of story you all wanted to tell, and then planning for myself how that fits into what I see being your overall whole group goal that you're going to reach. And I timeline it. Like, then I get into the nitty gritty, like, okay, levels 3 through 6 are going to be for this character. Like, that's when they're going to be in this particular city, I think. That's when this particular thing might happen with their family, maybe. And so I'm going to make sure that I focus and give them their big character beats so that they have a really satisfying bit of time where they feel like, oh, my character has a chance to react to something. And I don't know as a DM how they're going to react to whatever I've planned. That's on them to kind of get to know their character as we make those decisions together. So, yeah, and you all came to me with really, really incredible, like, deep characters. Like, I feel like I know your characters almost better than I know you all as people at this point. Because they all are they have such, like, strong motivation, or just, like, a really hurtful past, or things that they've done that they aren't proud of. And you gave all your characters such voice and such individual personalities that it became very clear to me very easily that, like, oh, if this person was going to have a redemption arc, then this is what that needs to look like, and how I can make that happen in the world. What kind of challenges would they need to overcome to feel like they've addressed their own needs and their own demons. A lot of it has to do with demons. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what happened last episode, though. Literally.
The demons are here. Yeah, that was one of those things I was like, okay, how am I going to get to the end of this story arc that's now 3 episodes in? We didn't have combat even for 2 whole episodes. And I was like, well, you know what? They're all motivated by killing monsters and demons. So I'm going to throw some demons at them and see what happens. And that's a good way to get people to make a decision and move forward, is throw the thing at the character that you know they don't like and make sure they know about it and that they have the means and the motivation to fix the problem.
Yeah, Zata killing the dude was shocking. I don't know why I was so shocked.
What? I know, he kept
So
saying
dramatic.
every episode he's been like, no, this is how things should be handled. And then the minute a thing presented itself, he handled it that way, and we all did like shocked Pikachu face. And it was glorious. It was wonderful. I was shocked too. I was like, he told us he was going to do that. Why didn't we believe him? Incredible.
Yeah, just there was no hesitation there for him, which was crazy.
Yeah, Royal knows what Zata would say and do, and he does it.
Yeah, I feel like I personally, as a role player, I think role play is a growth point for me. So I'm always trying to tap into Seraphina, and I think in a lot of ways she's different than I thought she would turn out to be when I first made her. So I think I'm still trying to figure her out a little bit and try to find her voice. So I think it's really interesting to see the really strong characters. I know Maraway and Bula I think they're the fan favorites. They just have such a strong voice, and yeah. I think it's really easy to imagine them come to life, and I think Robin and Bobby really do a really great job of bringing them to life. And it's really fun to see everybody in chat love them and interact with them.
Yeah, very much the same. I know you say that you're not great at improv, but I have to give you like unwarranted or unyielding compliments, because you came to me with everybody wrote me like a Google Doc of some kind for their character. Like when they initially introduced me to here's definitely who I want to play, help me fill in the details. Your document you wrote started with a letter, not a handwritten letter, but a letter that you typed out in Seraphina's voice from Seraphina to Eidos. And I was like, oh, this tells me everything about their relationship to each other. This tells me everything about how Seraphina like speaks and carries herself in the world. This is a letter to a friend, so this is her being like authentic, but also her best self. And I could just immediately, before I even got to the point where you were outlining different things about her backstory, I was like, I can hear Seraphina. I can see her walking down the street, I feel. And I immediately had a picture of her face in my head. So while you say you're not strong in the improv, you obviously understand your character. Even at the beginning you did, before we got as far as we are. And I think that maybe where you feel uncomfortable is knowing how she would react to things. You know, it's one thing to know yourself. It's another thing to be able to make strong decisions. And maybe that's something about Seraphina. Maybe she doesn't know. You know, that could be a thing. So I think that's a big part of writing characters as well, is knowing when your character doesn't have strength of character, if they're finding themselves and they're changing as they make new friends. You know, I'm 31 and I'm still changing every single year. So people grow, and it's hard to improv a character when you're allowing them room to grow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It is about figuring out how she would react to things, and I think I know. I have a clear picture of what Seraphina wants, but I do try to leave room to try to figure out what she needs, and I'm hoping that through the campaign and the experiences that she has, and seeing how she reacts to things and trying to yield to her, I think I'm trying to still figure that out.
Yeah. I'm curious, and I feel like maybe you should ask this to all the other players, because I want to hear their answers too. So when they come on Tea Time, this should be one of your questions.
Okay. What's the question?
How much do you think Seraphina is in you? How much do you think you are like the character you're playing, or do you think she is an entirely self-owned entity that she carries none of your own traits? How much of yourself is through in her?
I feel like on a superficial level, we're similar in certain ways. In that, I think we're outwardly quite feminine, like we lean very femme, and I also imagine Serafina being kind of ditzy, and I've definitely gotten feedback about the way that I speak and the way that I present myself. I have gotten feedback that I come across as very ditzy, but I
Which is
think
sexist, and you should never listen to because you're incredible. One of the most professional people I know, for the record. If you call her ditzy, you're not my friend. Go on.
yeah, it was always negative feedback about how ditzy
right?
I am. Yeah.
No one can ever say, like, oh, you're just fun and bubbly and awesome, and that can be professional, too. We can't just be friendly and professional. Come on. Sorry. I'm on my high horse now.
I think the way in which we differ are that I imagine her as being more headstrong, and I think that's really hard for me because I'm someone who's very yielding, and I think I'm someone who's like very quiet and reserved, but I don't imagine her in that way, and so it's hard to embody that, right? So I think I need to somehow like turn on that switch.
I get that. Like, I have my very first D&D character was in a campaign that my brother runs, and she is an Aesmar paladin, and she's tall and leggy and strong and tough and very serious. Like, she has very low wisdom. She has no intuition about people, but boy, can she fight. And that's very much not me. She's like very much not a girl's girl. And I am. So it was very hard for me to like lately I've only been playing characters who are very much like me, very like self-insert, because it's easier to improv as myself and know what I would do than it is to know what Morrigan would do, because I have to embody a whole nother personality to be her. So I could see that being a tricky part of improving.
I think that's really,
if someone is so different than you.
yeah, I feel like that's really surprising because I feel like all of the characters that we encounter, the NPCs that we encounter, I feel like they have such a rich imagery to them, and not only their punny names, but also their voice and their characteristics, and they all seem to have their own little motivations, which I think adds depth and life to the setting. So I think it is surprising for me to hear that it's challenging for you, because I feel like you do a really good job at improving the NPCs, and there's so many of them.
Thank you. What a compliment. There are a lot of NPCs, but like I couldn't like possibly plan. I don't think I've planned more than like 2 NPCs for this entire campaign thus far. They populate themselves in the world, kind of as you guys find it. So they're very like random, and that's probably what makes it feel really rich and varied, is that my head is just a random panic generator at the moment you guys walk in and say, what's the bartender's name? I'm like, what would their name be? I don't know. And randomness pops out. Luckily, I was a shy kid. I was someone who, like, before I was talking, I was sitting on the floor playing with toys, like whispering to myself, making up all these different stories and people, imaginary friends in my head. I wasn't talking to real people. I was doing it all up here. So I think maybe I'm just practiced in random generating people, because I've been doing it for a long time. And now I have a world that at least I can ask myself, not just what a bartender might be like, but what might a bartender in the rich part of Tuzankin be like? How could they have gotten there? Like, I don't have to answer those questions until you all ask, and then I just trust myself to know. Nothing I say is wrong. This is a character I made up, so whatever comes out, that's the truth. I'm yes-anding myself every time we play.
Yeah, something you mentioned, I think that's the crux of what I've been attempting to do with Serafina, to try to dig further, is you mentioned like the bartender in the rich part of Tuzankin, and it's kind of drawing that line between their background and how they might express different characteristics because of that. And so I think that was a very just astute little thing that you said. I think that's very helpful.
I love doing these little talks. Like, I keep learning things about myself that I've never thought about, but I'm like, oh yeah, I do it this way. Never asked myself how I did it.
Yeah, it just comes very naturally to you, so I think that's very interesting.
Thank you.
So, okay, so we've talked about the character development and how everybody kind of has the opportunity upcoming to explore different parts of their background, but I guess one of the questions I have is, what happens if one of us dies in the campaign?
Well, every single time we play, all I'm trying to do is kill you all. So I'm just kidding. I don't actually want any of your characters to die. I think I might cry if any of your characters die. They're beloved to me. And off on a tangent, I know that Bula and Bobby are like fan favorites, but I think maybe, I know I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I think I feel the way about Serafina and Eidos as other people do about Bobby and Marley. I think they're the cutest little spoiled rich kids. Oh my god, I love their whole vibe. Every conversation they have, I can't like even plan further in the session that I should be planning. So I'm just like, oh, hard eyes. These my little babies, watching them grow. I went off on such a tangent. I don't remember what you asked.
Oh, what happens if one of us dies?
Oh, yeah, if one of you dies. Yeah. Oh, my God, I'll be traumatized. No. Yeah, so if that were to happen, I've only ever played in one campaign so far where someone has died, and it was my husband's character. And so we all refused to let his character die, and we dragged him around until the DM gave us, like, a feasible way to earn a resurrection spell or something. So we brought him back. So I've never been in a campaign where someone just straight up died. Okay. However, I think I would have a very, like, first of all, I don't think I would let a player character die unless I knew that it wouldn't so deeply traumatize the person playing them, first of all, because that can be very hard. So I think if I thought that someone was about to die, I would have to, like, give us a little 10-minute break and have a quick conversation, like, this could be an interesting story beat if you're willing for them to actually die. Because while I know that things random happen and that it's a game, you know, again, we're here to tell a story, and I don't want to end someone's story prematurely. However, if that's something that they agree would be, like, in the group's best interest, or that they're ready to play someone new, we would do that. You know, I would find a way to introduce a new party member that player could play, or they could take over an NPC that they particularly loved. That would be an option. But, you know, the show must go on, and if the big bad evil guy is still out there, dealing with trauma and dealing with loss is something that can be a really, like, powerful part of Dungeons & Dragons. You know, it's a very safe space to say, yeah, I love this character very much, and I don't want to, like, roleplay death necessarily, but let's do it. Let's, like, mourn me a little bit. That can be very powerful, and let's mourn a friend a little bit. And I'm someone who thinks nothing if not D&D can be therapeutic and kind of healing. So the death being something that you can heal from, that's something I would want to at least consider with the player taking that route and saying, maybe we just let them be dead and you find someone else to play, and we see how the rest of the party manages that loss. It makes the story more real too. So while I don't want to see any of your players die, death happens, and especially in a world as dangerous as Dion.
Yeah, I feel kind of similarly. I think part of the game is the stakes. And so I think I would never want to kill Serafina, and I don't think I would try to put her in a situation where she would purposefully die, but I think I like the idea of the possibility of her dying being very real, because I think it makes the experience more real, and I think it makes it more immersive. So I think if it comes to that, you can just let
her go.
Yeah.
We will make another character. I have no doubt that you all don't have, like, 8 characters rattling around in your brain ready to pull out at any moment, who are just as lovable as our OG6 are. So I think for most of the players in the campaign, they would say the same thing. If their death meant something, then they would be for it. But I think it's important in something like this, a short-term campaign, that the death, if it's there, has to really mean something.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that, like, if it could make the story richer, that would be something that's welcome.
I think so. For me, definitely. But I also am very careful about my players' mental health and state of mind, and that's not something everybody is prepared to fight with, to grapple with.
Yeah,
I think person.
What'd you say? Sorry, I missed the last part.
I just think it would depend on the player.
Yeah, I agree.
They would definitely be a person.
I agree. I think it is a balance, because I think what I've been noticing from you and what I've been hearing from you through this conversation is that you really enjoy a good story, and I think that's a priority for you, like something that's satisfying and feels like enriching. I feel like that's really important for you. But I think this is a group project, and so if somebody doesn't want that to happen, we can't just do something for a good story.
Yeah. We all picked each other to do this with, so I'm going to make sure that we all are in it for the long run and for the remainder of the story. But yeah, I am someone who thinks I'm here for the story. I'm here for the characters, and that doesn't necessarily mean that a satisfying outcome is always a comedic, happy outcome. I believe in the power of tragedy as well. So the world is dangerous, and your decisions are going to affect whether or not you all come out of it alive. To be frank.
Yeah,
but boy, will it be satisfying either way.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something, which is that D&D can be therapeutic, and I think that's really true in the sense that when you're exploring real emotions and real, I don't know, just like, yeah, when you're experiencing real emotions in a fantasy setting, in a fictional setting, I think it feels in a way safer to tap into that because I'm not sure. I feel like there's a safety net there.
Yeah. You can always say, "Oh, I'm not okay," and back up. In real life, you can't say, "Oh, I'm not okay," and back up. If you're lucky, you can. But yeah, there are things that maybe I, as Kara, don't want to like relive, but that I, as a character who's not me, or with characters who aren't my real people who know me in real life, I can play out things in a way that maybe I wish I had done things differently, or maybe in a way that maybe it's a fear I have and I want to work through it in a setting that's safe and see like, would I even be able to make feasibly smart decisions if this thing approached me? Yeah, I think that there is a safety to experiencing scary things or hard things while playing a silly little game with dice. There's just something, I think it works the same part of your brain that you need when things go wrong in real life. I think it's a good exercise to imagine, to play pretend, to be someone else for a while, and to experience things in their shoes.
Yeah, I think that's spot on in that we can feel open to explore and experiencing things that, you know, if it happened to us in real life, maybe we'd be just really closed off or we would shut down. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I hope we, like you said, we only met just pretty recently and this campaign is new. So I wonder if we'll be able to get to a point when we feel comfortable with each other enough and we get into the campaign and we can explore that more deeply. Because I think right now everything is very silly. Everything's very silly, right?
Yeah, but a couple of you already came to me with some pretty traumatic stories that want to be played out at some point. So I'm like, okay, if you're, that's why I'm gonna ask everybody what their hard stops are, because if you have something you want your character to go through, I'll make it happen. But we have to also, you know, it is a silly game, so making sure that that's equal measure with the light stuff and the fun stuff is important, because we're also here to have fun. And it's not fun if everything's dark all the time and dreary. At least not for me.
So I know you've done a lot of planning with regard to the campaign and just kind of the overall story arc. Have you ever experienced situations in which like the characters, or so far where the characters have done something or reacted in a way that was unexpected for you, and how do you pivot from that?
Yeah, for sure. We're only a few episodes in when I introduced the Thieves Guild in Tuzankin. And I did try, I think I failed, but I tried to present them as very, like, they're a Thieves Guild, but they're very, like, Robin Hood, right? Like, they really are, like, robbing the rich to give to the needy. And I thought that would be, like, slam dunk. You guys would have a little bit of a conversation where your characters who hate thieves, Maraway, would have a conversation, you know, a really good roleplay moment where they talk about, well, I don't like thieves, but I thought, you know, that robbing the rich would kind of outweigh that, but it doesn't necessarily for all your characters. So then we spent 2 relatively unplanned episodes trying for me to say, like, no, really, they're not the bad guys here. But I as a DM failed to make that, like, as obvious as it needed to be for your characters to say, I would definitely side with the Thieves Guild in this way, because that's what I had planned. I thought that would be a slam dunk. You guys would understand this is the assignment. We're going to do a fun heist. End of arc. But now it's 3 episodes in, and we're just to the point where your characters finally were like, okay, we believe the thieves. We're going to side with them. And we're going to go after this treasurer guy. So Yeah, that was totally unexpected. Have we had incredibly fun moments and I think some really strong character development and role play in these 2 episodes? Absolutely. So I don't think it's been a waste whatsoever. Just because it doesn't go the way I think it's going to go doesn't mean it's not important for the characters to play out. And I think that in a way that really brought all of your characters to a better understanding of each other. We all understand now Zada, he's a loose cannon, but he says he's a loose cannon. So is he actually the least chaotic? Because at least he says what he's going to do a lot and often. You know, it was a learning curve for me to figure out, okay, I know exactly how I need to make things very obvious when it comes to morality for this party. And for you all, I think it gave you all a way to get to know me as a DM and what clues I'm laying and why. And trying to interpret what the heck I mean when I say, you know, this guy's funneling money off the top. But all taxes are bad, so I can't just be as gray area as I am in real life, I suppose.
Yeah, that kind of calls back to some of the things that you mentioned earlier, which was about giving the group multiple opportunities to find the thread that you're trying to weave. You said breadcrumbs. That's kind of how you described it. So yeah, I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I have to have a lot of arrows pointing in the way I want you to go, as opposed to having multiple different tracks. Because sometimes there is one ending. Now, there was a very real possibility that you all chose to attack the Thieves Guild instead. I knew that going in, and I would have been, ready to pivot to that had that been the case. I just thought you were going to side with them immediately. And you didn't either. You did neither of the things I could have planned. And you spent a long time trying to figure out what the right side to take was.
We were very suspicious as a group.
We were very suspicious. But I did introduce them as a Thieves Guild, so I probably should have seen that coming. But your characters are not messing around. You're all like, no, if we're going to fight someone, we're going to know why. Someone in the chat said, why plan?
Why plan?
Exactly, yeah, I'm just going to make it up as I go.
Do you think, okay, so one of the tips that I hear for DMs is don't plan too much. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, for sure. The first time I DM'd, I planned a whole lot of lore. Now, mind you, I wasn't even, running my own homebrew world. I was working off of a book, but I tried to memorize everything in that book, every region, every spell, everything, and it got me nowhere. I didn't need any of it. It ended up being a whole lot of scratch. And so, yeah, for one, don't waste your own time. If you're not very good at, well, I'm a teacher. I used to write lesson plans for a living. So, I used to be a teacher. So, I'm pretty good at knowing that the more I plan, the less of that I'll actually use. And the more we're going to end up somehow off topic. So, I got pretty good at just having an outline and then filling in the details for what my class needs. So, with DMing, it's the same thing. I make sure I have an outline. I make sure I've covered, honestly, just the physical space your characters could possibly get to in a session. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let them travel across the world, so I don't need to plan what's happening on the East Continent yet. They could maybe travel to another city by the time we end today's session, but I can get there as I need. So, yeah, I think over-planning is going to lead to you being really stressed out, not being able to pull out the details you do need, not being able to find the little bit of story that you need. Yeah, it's going to end up a mess. Just trust yourself. Get to know the world that you're playing in. Get to know that the current location that they're in. And from there, trust yourself to fill in the details as you need. It is something you have to practice. I'm not going to say improv is easy. I think it's easy for me, maybe. But it is a practice that can be learned. You can teach your brain to trust yourself in the things you say. And just knowing, again, that you're never wrong. You're the DM. Unless you're saying, oh, and now you all die and the dice don't matter. Then, yeah, trust yourself that what you say goes. Write it down after the fact so you don't forget it for next time. And then, boom, that's part of the world. And you have it. So over-planning before, avoid it. Debrief after so you remember what happened and because your party's always going to want to go back to the jellyfish or the rope salesman named Jellyfish.
Yeah.
Just make sure you write that down in the moment so that you don't forget parts of the world that are now canon.
Yeah. Okay, my takeaway is plan broad strokes and just be ready to pivot and improvise.
Yes, yeah. Take an improv class, man. If you want to become a better DM, take an improv class. That's what I did. I took 2 years of improv during COVID, and it just taught me how to trust myself. And I think it also taught me how to, talk in front of people without turning beet red and being embarrassed about the way I sound or look. Just saying silly stuff in front of people and knowing that some of the time they'll laugh, that helps. That trains your brain that it's okay to say things and to not be afraid of what comes out of your mouth.
Oh, I feel like we all need this. I feel like everybody needs improv class.
Everybody needs improv class. It was really healing for me. I was in the middle of a pandemic lockdown, like didn't see anybody except my immediate family for a bunch of months. But boy, online improv class got me laughing once a week. First of all, great for your brain, and taught me to be confident in the things I say. And
I love that.
Let it fly. Yeah. Everybody, take improv class. D&D 101. Bobby put that in Mod Pod.
Yeah, that's the next episode is improv class.
Very roundabout way of saying, yeah, don't overplan. Just trust yourself.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Thank you.
All right, so what can we look forward to in just maybe either the upcoming session or just in general? Like, what are some things that we can look forward to?
Yeah, I think the upcoming session, we left the last session with a pretty hefty cliffhanger with you all knowing that not only are you investigating some nefarious city officials, there's demons involved. Like, the stakes have just gotten a whole lot higher, and even more so for several of your characters who have some trauma involving fiends and devils and things. So that in and of itself, I think the players and the people watching are going to get to see these characters. Some of them are going to be really serious for the first time in this campaign. Going into this fight, I think there's going to be a little bit of a character moment for several people, where you'll see who they kind of are underneath the facade. So that's very exciting for me. Also, you'll get to see a little combat. It's been a minute since we've had real combat. I think the last people you fought were a bunch of children.
Yes, little babies.
So I'm excited to get you all back in combat. We keep talking about like character development and like personality traits, but you've all made really incredible on paper D&D characters who have some really cool combat statistics and things. So I think it's going to be very fun to see you all pull out your character sheets and really stretch your character's legs for the first time, kind of. So that's coming up in the next episode. In the long run, I think that the world is very quickly going to take you all away from Tuzenkin, and we're going to see what the rest of the world is like. I keep saying Tuzenkin is kind of the center of the world. And I mean that in the terms of like commerce and society and culture. You've been in this very like sheltered city. But this is a world that's largely unsettled and undiscovered and is full of monsters and chaos and magic. So I think getting to see all of your characters out of their element, so to speak, and for some of the characters more in their element, is going to be a big part of our first like story arc, our first act of all of this. So that's something else that I'm very excited to see happen.
I kind of want to take a guess at something. I don't know if this is the theme that you're going for, but just the imagery that I'm having in my mind is that when you say Tuzenkin's like the center of the world, you say how it's like very civilized, but like as we move outward towards less civilized areas, that's where we meet like some of like the more ancient things and like the more chaotic things and the demons that you're talking about. And so like we start here and then move outward, which is very interesting because Tuzenkin's the center, or is described as the center. So
yeah, that's very astute. I don't want to spoil anything, but that's very astute. Yes, that's what it's how this world is sort of built. And you'll also get to see why Tuzenkin sees itself so highly.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because I think we've only explored the city, so we have no sense of what's outside, except for maybe like our hometown a little bit. So right. I'm definitely excited to explore.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to put you all in some crazy situations and see what comes out.
Yeah. Alrighty, thank you so much for your time and such a good first tea time with Melanie.
Agreed.
So thank you so much for your time, and thank you everybody in chat. I love everybody. Like, I love like watching chat as we're going through.
Yeah, me too. I was like, oh man, I can't even keep up. Thank you for the people who watched. This is so excellent. Thank you, Melanie, for doing this. This is going to be such a fun thing.
Yeah,
I'm so excited to watch everybody else.
I'm definitely going to ask everybody about that question you asked, which was how similar you are to your characters. So that'll be a good good question to ask everyone. So I'm excited.
Marway says, I can't wait to be on. Yeah, we didn't start with, like, did you tell the people what tea time is at the beginning?
A little bit. So tea time is mostly, I can say it again, and it wasn't very planned out well. Tea time is just like a little recap session. It's going to be chatty. We do watch chat. I did put chat in the overlay, so it's kind of incorporated. And I did see some questions, and the mods in chat are really great. They answer them before we got to
Thank
them.
you, mods. Thank you,
So
Bobby. Thank you,
so
Bob.
sweet. Yeah.
Thank you, Dane, for helping us tech support.
I know. He's so patient with me. He's like, it's because I'm a nurse and there's old people on computers. I was like chaotically clicking around, so he was very sweet. But yeah, tea time is just like a chatty recap where we kind of chat through the last session and get to know the characters in depth, because I think it's just another way to dive deeper into like the characters that we've developed. So, and kind of speculate. When you're not around, we're going to speculate about what's going to happen. I'm going to tell them everything that you said here. So
incredible. Yeah, give them all the spoilers. I want everybody to know that they have a separate Discord channel without me. They're behind my back all the time. They can't foil me, though. I'm God.
She's watching.
But yes, thank you, Melanie. This is so cool. How fun.
Thank you. We'll definitely have to have you on, because I think we only thought we were going to have you on this time in the last one, but I think we should definitely have you on just at like little milestones to check in.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Milestone moments.
All right. Yeah, what is the next thing that's coming up on the stream this week?
Goodness. I think the next thing is myself and Bobby and Royal playing Baldur's Gate. Is it tomorrow already? What is today? Tuesday?
Today's Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday.
Already. Goodness gracious. Yeah, so tomorrow night, 7 Central, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Bobby and Royal and I will be playing Baldur's Gate 3. Bobby and Royal like to mage hand punch me all the time in Baldur's Gate. And we all do silly dances, and we play as 50 Shades of Blue. We are 2 tiefling and a dragonborn, causing chaos in Faerun. So come watch us. It's very silly.
Alrighty, guys. See you tomorrow at Baldur's Gate.
Yes, see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Bye.